You're watching CW Montana. This is the MTN 9 o'clock news.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us on your Monday. I'm Russ Riesinger. We begin with some encouraging news surrounding the COVID-19 outbreak. Some new data shows a major drop in projected confirmed cases, hospital impact, and COVID-19 deaths in Montana. The projection model being used by the White House Coronavirus Task Force appears to be easing up on potential damage across the state. Now, we first told you about this model last week. It was then projecting 270 COVID deaths in Montana. That number has now been reduced to 22. The University of Washington says modeling projections change, and with more data collected, it appears that social distancing is working. The model has also scaled back the projected number of hospital beds needed from 852 to 45 and ICU beds from 129 needed to 8. Now, the report also shows the peak resource need for hospitals has moved from April 26th to April 13th here in the state. Well, 319 people have officially contracted the illness across Montana, and 6 patients have died. Of those new cases, 7 are from here in Yellowstone County, 4 women and 3 men. Yellowstone County now sits at 47 cases. Gallatin County, the state's highest tally, now sits at 118. 89 of those individuals are under the age of 60. Well, Governor Steve Bullock has not yet extended the stay-at-home deadline of April 10th, but did say last week he expects to do that in coming days. Well, the numbers look better for Wyoming as well, but projections are still predicting more than 100 deaths across the Cowboy State. After another week of data collection, the new projection is 114 deaths compared to 145 and a small shortage of ICU beds. The peak resource use in hospitals is still projected later in the month on April 29th. And in Wyoming, as of this afternoon, the state now has 210 cases. Wyoming remains the only state in the entire country without a single reported death and one of the only without the stay-at-home order. Laramie, Teton, and Fremont counties still have the highest number of cases. Well, tonight we are learning Montanans who don't carry health insurance or may have lost it when they got laid off could be some of the most vulnerable. So we sent Q2's Andrea Lutz to find out what resources are available if you find yourself in this position.
It seems there may be some heavy barriers for those still working in jobs where they cannot telework. Jobs like the service industry, servers and drivers, cooks, even construction workers. It's these workers that may face the biggest challenge if they do end up getting the coronavirus because they report they have no health insurance. And it's these kinds of jobs that have an increase in the risk of exposure to COVID-19, according to research from the Kaiser Foundation. The study says in 2018, nearly 28 million non-elderly people in the U.S. lacked health insurance.
I think that is the key to this right now. It's like you can't wait until you have an accident with your automobile and then go and get insurance. It doesn't cover it then. People need to go out right now and be covered. Montana
Commissioner of Insurance and Securities Matt Rosendale says there are options if you don't have health insurance right now.
Don't wait until you get sick. Don't go uncovered. That is really a big thing.
The state of Montana offers short duration health plans where you can sign up at any point in the year. Rosendale also says if you recently got laid off, you could be eligible for COBRA benefits through your previous employer, but premiums could be much higher. Health insurance through the federal exchange is still an option because losing your job is a qualified circumstance through the Affordable Care Act. And there is some good news for those who still do have health insurance.
Anyone whose physician has recommended that they get tested for COVID-19, that test is free of charge, and all the major health insurers here in the state have waived all the co-pays and deductibles in association with that testing.
The Families First Coronavirus Response Act was signed into law in March, which may ensure more uninsured can access free testing. However, the legislation doesn't necessarily address coverage of treatment if you do get COVID-19 and don't have health insurance.
Whether you're going to have a conversation with your landlord or whether you're going to have a conversation with your insurance agent, as soon as you see that you're going to have difficulties in making those payments to any party, contact them immediately, because we are finding that everyone is making provisions and trying to work together so that we all can get through this very, very difficult circumstance.
In Billings, Andrea Lutz, MTN News.
And Andrea says it's unclear if Congress could back additional programs to cover those without health care. Well, for people without a home or a place to isolate, the process of waiting on COVID-19 test results can be a major challenge. Normally, people are told to self-isolate at home until they receive those results. Well, Yellowstone County is now ready for those who don't have a place to go. Q2's Mitch Legge checked out the facility at Metro Park today and is standing by with a look. Mitch?
Yellowstone County disaster and health officials have been working to turn one half of the Montana Pavilion at Metro Park into an isolation and quarantine space for people without a place to go. If people who are facing homelessness or domestic violence are waiting on COVID-19 test results, they are taken to the pavilion to wait out the testing process in isolation. The facility is divided by curtains into 10 feet by 10 feet squares and is currently set up to hold between 30 and 50 people. People will be able to use the bathroom, take a shower, and get a hot meal with 24/7 security provided by Metro Park. The facility is scheduled to be operational by Wednesday at noon.
For the homeless people who don't have a place to be sheltered when they get released from the hospital. So we're providing them a place to come to be isolated and quarantined. So they're either awaiting the results of a test or have gotten the results of a COVID-19 test.
And again, Neal said that the isolation site should be ready for use by Wednesday at noon, but he said he hopes there are no people there to use it.
All right, thank you, Mitch. And the isolation site will be staffed by organizations in the Continuum of Care Coalition, a group of 25 local organizations already working with the homeless in the Billings area. There is now a donation site for personal protective equipment for our local healthcare workers. N95 respirators, surgical masks, and face shields are all needed, as well as disinfectants like Lysol wipes and hand sanitizer. So if you have any extra items, they're being collected at the Sandstone building on the Metro Park campus. To set up a donation, you can call 208-8154. You may have heard about that tiger from the Bronx Zoo who apparently tested positive for COVID-19. Concerns have risen for the safety of domestic pets. This is the first case in the U.S. of an animal contracting coronavirus, and as of now, it's believed that the tiger came down with the virus through a handler. So the big question is whether or not an animal can spread COVID-19 to humans or other animals. We spoke with local veterinarian Edie Best, and she tells us more information is needed before we can draw any conclusions.
While we know that a few animals have tested positive, that have lived with or been exposed to a human infected with COVID, there is no evidence currently that pets can transmit back to people, or that pets are necessarily getting sick with the disease.
Now, Best recommends if you've been diagnosed or have been feeling symptoms of COVID-19, try to distance yourself from your pets as much as possible until more information is available. As of today, it appears all 56 Montana counties will move to all mail ballots for the June 2nd primary election. The Secretary of State's office says the counties made their plans known by last Friday's deadline, although they do have until Wednesday to change their mind. If that's the case, absentee ballots will be sent to every registered voter on May 8th. Voters also don't have to worry about stamps because each county will pick up the postage. Counties are recommending that voters get their ballots in the mail by May 26th to ensure that they arrive at the county election offices by 8 p.m. on Election Day. And if you're not registered to vote, you can still do so right up until Election Day. Well, if you've driven by any of the golf courses in the Billings area, you may be surprised to still see golfers out enjoying them. Well, many businesses have been forced to close because of the coronavirus outbreak. There's a gray area when it comes to hitting the greens, with states disagreeing whether golf and many other industries are essential or not. Now, some states have closed golf courses, while others, such as Arizona, have deemed them essential. Here in Montana, Governor Bullock didn't mention golf in his stay-at-home order, but he did say that leaving your home for outdoor activity, as long as you comply with social distancing guidelines, is okay. Golf is one of the few sports where those participating can social distance and not touch any of the same equipment. Courses are open, but taking precautions such as limiting carts to one golfer or family members only.
We're following the directives of the governor. The governor and many states have allowed for outdoor activities as long as people are adhering to the social distancing guidelines. Our operation operations have changed substantially because we're not allowing guest play. We're only open for member play, and that is one rider per cart in their private carts, no rental carts, but it's making the best of a very bad situation.
The federal government does have a recommended list of essential businesses, but for now it's still up to the states to enforce those guidelines. What sounds like it could be good news may not be so great. The Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services has seen a sharp drop in reports of child abuse and neglect since schools closed due to COVID-19. As MTN's John Riley reports, state officials are concerned with the sudden decline.
Since the governor directed the closure of public schools on March 15th, state officials have seen a drastic drop in calls to the child abuse hotline, which has raised red flags for DPHHS. From March 8th through the 14th, the week prior to the closures, 765 calls a week were being made to the hotline. Since the closure, the number of calls has dropped by more than 40% to an average of 425 calls a week. DPHHS says this shows just how important the role of teachers play in a child's well-being.
And in addition to the community, they're our eyes and ears. They see children every day, and they know them as well as anybody. So it truly is, they're an important piece.
You don't have to be a teacher or a member of Child Protective Services to report negligence or abuse. Anyone can make a report anonymously at any time.
Just because we're in a pandemic doesn't mean that a family struggles, and if you see something, if you suspect something, then do something.
DPHHS recognizes that these are unprecedented times, sufficient with financial insecurities and stresses. No two situations are exactly alike, and there is no shame for a family who is struggling to ask for help.
And if people are having struggles, if a family is struggling, to make sure that they're asking for help, make sure that we're reaching out to people and seeing if they do have everything they need, or how can people help. Yeah, we want people to call the hotline, but we also want people to be watching out for their friends and neighbors before something happens, before there's child abuse and neglect.
Reporting in Helena, John Riley, MTN News.
April is Child Abuse Awareness Month, and in previous years, hundreds of pinwheels would fill the state capitol and Montana courthouse lawns. But due to COVID-19, people are encouraged to make pinwheel art and display it at home. Families are also encouraged to post on social media with the hashtag Pinwheels for Prevention. Still to come on tonight's 9 o'clock news, we're going to learn about the origin of one of Yellowstone Park's most popular wildlife, the black wolf. But first, Ed McIntosh is in with your full forecast. We'll be right back.